So, hey guys, how's your guy doing? All right. So, my name is Owen, and I'm from mainland China, obviously. And today, I'm going to talk about this topic right here. So, so before I start, I want you guys to imagine, this game. It's a first-person shooting game, and in the game, you have just shoot down one of your enemy, and instead of being dead and lying on the ground, the very enemy you've just killed simply waves back at you. Okay, with a freaking smile on his face, also in a very peaceful way. And on top of that, this dead enemy also gave out all his weapons to you, also in a very friendly way, like this. So this sounds like a very stupid game that I made up just right now. But I can tell you that this is actually a real game that has been played by millions of players right now. So I'm going to reveal the name of this game later on in my talk. So before that, let's get started with my talk. Okay, I forgot about this. Okay. A brief introduction of my background. So we are a 50 people game outsourcing company based in China, mainland China to be specific. And we're using all these amazing tools to make the beautiful arts for the game developers around the world. And we provide 2D services, starting from 2D concepts, illustration, graphic, matte painting, and also we help our developer clients with the modeling, texturing, rigging. So literally everything you can see inside the game. So you may ask, why do I have to work with both Western and Eastern clients at the same time? The answer is simple, is that I simply have to work with these guys. So as you have already probably noticed that some of the top names in the industry, and as you can see that they come from very different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds and time zones. So first of all, if you're working with these guys, it means that you have to work on different time zones. So personally speaking, I have to travel around the world, but the good news is that I don't really have a fixed time zone anymore, so I don't really suffer from any jet lag anymore. So you can obviously see from my eyes, right? Okay, so what is so different? I like to break it down into 4 factors. The difference in culture, the difference in art style, which has been well explained by the previous talk by Game Refinery. And the third one will be in market and policy. So when it comes to this part, since I'm from the mainland China, I'm going to talk a little more about what is really happening in the mainland China. Okay, so first of all, the cultural difference. As you can see, that this is a typical business scenario you can find in the Western world. People wearing suits, shaking hands with a smile on the face. While in Japan, you can see something like this. People take deep bows, right? Yeah, and people are literally taking notes during meetings, and things could be a little bit more formal compared to the Western culture. And the last one is a little bit more interesting. So anyone of you who have ever talked or worked with a Chinese businessman will share my feelings on this. So actually, you are very likely to be in the same situation as the guy in the middle. So in Chinese, we call it 劝酒, and you can roughly translate it into English as forced drinking. Yeah. So it's a culture that still exists, believe it or not. But statistically speaking, 99% of the business talks or negotiations happens on the dinner tables in mainland China. So this is something I think you're probably going to encounter if you are going to work with a Chinese businessman. So get ready for it and don't get yourself too drunk. Okay. So this part is my favorite. Before I talk about this part, I want to say a disclaimer on this topic because everybody knows that stereotypes is not good. I'm not trying to advocate for stereotypes, of course, but I'm trying to share my personal experiences, throughout the years I'm in the gaming industry. Okay. As you can see, I kind of divided this whole gaming industry into 3 different regions. They are Western, Japan, and China. At least this works for me. And also, I kind of score them with 3 different factors. They are loyalty, communication, and generosity. Loyalty means that how long your client is going to stick with you. And communication means that how easily you can talk with each other. Well, generosity means that how much money they want to pay you. Are they tight on budget, or are they generous? So for the Western part, people are very easy to talk with. You can just go directly to the point and talk about business, without any bullshit. Just talk with them. But sometimes, they leave you easily for some reason. I think it's a cultural thing. Sometimes they leave you for a better option, for a better price, for I don't know the reason why. But to me, it's the situation in the Western market. Well, when it comes to Japan, it's quite different. Japanese people are, as you know, they're very conservative. So at the very beginning, everything goes very slowly. So it's very hard to get their trust on you at the very beginning. So the Japanese clients will go to your office, they will pay a visit to your company and check everything out to see how is everything going actually, before they make their decision and work with you. So, but the good news is that once you pass their tests and the due diligence, they're gonna stick with you forever. So they are extremely loyal to you when you earn their trust. Okay, and and most of them are very generous in terms of pricing. Yeah. So when it comes to China, it's a completely different story. Obviously, I'm going to talk about this more in the next parts. So the difference in the art style, I think this one has been well explained from the previous talk, and you can see that this is the art style that is going to be popular in China. Well, this kind of style is going to be popular in the Western world. As you can see that the solid color, the very boxy and bulky shapes of the character designs. And obviously this kind of manga and chibi and cartoony kind of style is going to be popular in Japan. So as art house, we have to cater for different kinds of art styles, because we're just simply a bunch of artists who make the arts for the game developers. And the difference in the market is even more obvious, as you probably know that the Chinese development and the publishing market is kind of dominated by a few big brothers, like Tencent, NetEase, and Shanda. So take Tencent, for example. As you know that Tencent is literally buying everyone, right? And their games is among the most profitable ones inside of China and even around the world. So you are very likely to talk with these guys, these big brothers, if you want to launch your game in China. So here comes the very interesting part, is that the mobile game publishing in China is quite different. When you talk about the App Store, Apple's App Store, we have a special version in China, on which you can never find the most popular apps or games around the world, like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can never find them on this. But instead, you can find all these preferred games, which were developed and published by the local Chinese game developers. So that's quite different. And also, on the other hand, when it comes to Google Play, Google services are all blocked in mainland China. So it means that the Chinese game players, they can only get their games from these guys. So if you take a real close look at these guys, you'll notice that the first four of them are actually phone makers. Believe it or not, they are actually the physical phone manufacturers. So they kind of choose to pre-install their preferred games on their phones. So anyone who bought their phones will inevitably get access to the games they prefer. And for the fifth one is Baidu. I'm not sure if you guys know it. It's actually the relevant, equivalent of Google in mainland China. So obviously, people, when players search for games, they will get recommendations from this search engine. But the last one is very interesting. It's literally an antivirus. Who get their games from antivirus, right? It's like buying marijuana from a police officer, right? It doesn't make any sense. But, this is the situation here in mainland China. So, and before you want to launch your game in China, you simply have to have this paperwork. It means that if you want your games to make money in China, it takes a lot of time to get this. Taking my personal experience, for example, I used to in the publishing mobile game publishing industry for 2 years, and until now I still don't get my ISBN. So you can imagine how long the queue is. So this page is quite, obviously somebody from China noticed this. So this page is literally something you have to put in front of your loading page. So inevitably, it's going to make any game look like a horror game, right? Obviously, right. So imagine this page on Candy Crush. Makes no freaking point. Okay. And also before you come to China, you have to localize it and also harmonize it. We call it. It means that you have to follow all these three principles for your games. So first of all, non-sexual contents and non-violence and non-political, obviously. So let me explain it to you. Non-sexual, so it means that no cleavage. I'm sorry, guys, no cleavage for your games. You have to cover it with your creativity, whatever you want to do with, just no cleavage. Okay. And so now let me review the game that I mentioned before I talk. The name of the game is actually PUBG Mobile. It's published and developed by Tencent. And in order to get the paperwork I mentioned earlier, they literally changed the name of the game from PUBG Mobile to Game for Peace, right? Of course, you're playing your friends for peace, okay? And in the games, whenever you shoot down your enemy, the enemy will wave back at you at a very friendly way, okay? So to show that, it's a peaceful game, okay? And no violence is involved, even you are using your weapons, to shoot your enemy, of course, yeah. And also people gives out their weapons peacefully in a very peaceful gesture, like. Okay, and of course the blood is green in China, obviously, right? I mean, is it even blood? I think it's like a lightning ball or something. So my personal advice for working with both Western and Eastern clients would be just don't do it. No. Honestly, it's just too much effort and too much time on it. Look at me. Okay. Yeah, you left. Yeah. But if you unfortunately have to do it and you kind of make a living out of it, here are my tips. So for Japan, try to be more patient and be very professional with your talks, with your every business talks, and pay great attention to every single details because they're watching you. Okay, and don't give up until you kind of build a long-term relationship with you. Okay, it's it's going to be pay off in the future collaboration with them. So for the Western market, it's much simple. So you go to the game shows like this, and you can go directly to the point and talk of business with them. For China, it's a little bit special. I think you should build your social connections first before you do any business with anyone. So this is very important in the mainland China. This is the cultural background what we have. Okay, and install WeChat on your phone. Obviously, I think everybody here has a WeChat on their phone. And go to dinners and try not to get yourself too drunk. Thank you.
We have a few moments. Okay, we have moments for questions. If people ask, do you guys want to ask any questions? I have one question. Okay. What does the black screen say?
Oh, the black screen page is called the healthy advice page. It's actually something it's a healthy advice given by the Chinese government, telling you that how to play game healthily, right?
So pretty much don't play too long. That's what he translated to me.
Don't play too more and
and
stay away from violence and stay away from sexual contents and stay away from piracy, something like that. It's a mandatory if you launch a game in China.
It's a great way to help developers get more
definitely
users playing longer.
Yeah, and also very good for the players. Yeah, it works for me. Yeah. Okay.
Any questions?
No.
Yeah. If they don't, I continue. I worked with Japan as well, and
Yeah.
so I totally understand the super patience.
Yeah.
Can you tell any case of clients that you were working
Yeah.
in Western or Japanese market
Yeah.
that you ended like the biggest mistakes you made when you were still learning how to deal with them?
Okay. I have example for the Western clients because I'm from the Asian background. I'm from mainland China. So when I joined the industry 8 years ago, I was a rookie, and I'm deeply rooted in my culture, Chinese culture. So when I talk with Western clients, I like to dance around with them, and not talk about the pricing, not talk about the schedule, the very important stuff they want to know. But in order to show respect to me, they dance with me, So it end up, dancing with each other for hours without talking about real stuff. So my advice for you, for anyone from the Asian background, just get to the point directly and talk business and come to the shows like this. It really works for me.